My daughter-in-law hit me and I stayed silent. The next morning, when she saw who was at the table, the slap came out of nowhere, sharp and stinging across my left cheek. I tasted blood where my teeth caught the inside of my mouth. Emily stood there, her manicured hand still raised, her face twisted with a rage I had never seen before. The breakfast dishes clattered as I stumbled back against the kitchen counter, my 65-year-old body suddenly feeling every year, every ache, every betrayal. But what shocked me more than the violence was what she said next, thinking I was too dazed to understand. She turned to her phone, still on speaker, and laughed. Actually laughed. The voice on the other end belonged to her friend Veronica, and Emily said something that made my blood run cold. She said she was counting down the days until I was finally gone, just like my son David. Just like she had planned all along. I did not cry out. I did not fight back. I simply stood there, one hand pressed against my burning cheek, the other gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. My legs wanted to give out beneath me, but I forced them to stay steady. I forced my face to remain blank, confused, like the demented old woman she wanted everyone to believe I was. Emily stared at me for a long moment, her eyes calculating, waiting to see if I would crumble. When I just blinked at her slowly, as if I did not quite understand what had happened, I saw satisfaction flash across her face. She thought she had won. She thought I was too far gone to remember this moment by tomorrow. She was wrong. David died 6 months ago. A heart attack, they said. Sudden and unexpected for a healthy 42-year-old man who ran marathons and ate organic everything. The doctors called it a tragic anomaly, a genetic defect no one saw coming. I believed them because why would not I? David was my only child, the light of my life, and the idea that his death was anything but cruel fate was too horrible to consider. I mourned him like any mother would, with a grief so consuming that some days I forgot to eat, forgot to sleep, forgot everything except the gaping hole where my son used to be. Emily played the devoted widow perfectly, crying at the funeral, clutching my hand, telling everyone how grateful she was to have me for support during this unbearable time. I treated her like my own daughter. I always had, from the moment David brought her home 8 years ago. She came from a modest background, working 2 jobs to put herself through community college, and I admired her determination. When they got engaged, I helped pay for the wedding because her parents could not afford it. When they bought their first house, I co-signed the mortgage. When Emily said she wanted to quit her job to focus on starting a family, I encouraged it, even offering to help with expenses. I loved her because David loved her, and because she seemed to love him back with the same fierce devotion. Or so I thought. After David died, Emily suggested I move in with her. The house we were in now, the beautiful colonial in the suburbs of Connecticut with the wraparound porch and the garden I had spent 20 years cultivating, was technically in both our names. David had insisted on it years ago, saying it would make estate planning easier. Emily said she could not bear the thought of me rattling around in this big house all alone, drowning in memories. She said we needed each other, that grief was easier to carry together. I believed her. I packed up my things and moved into the guest room, grateful to have someone nearby who understood the depth of my loss. That was 4 months ago. The changes started slowly. Emily began making comments about my memory, little things at first. She would ask if I remembered something we had supposedly discussed, and when I looked confused, she would sigh and say we had talked about it just yesterday. She started insisting I had forgotten to take my medications, even when I was certain I had taken them. She would find my reading glasses in strange places and suggest I was getting forgetful. She mentioned to neighbors that she was worried about me, that the grief seemed to be affecting my mental state. I chalked it up to miscommunication, to the fog of mourning that made everything feel slightly unreal. I even started to doubt myself. Maybe I was forgetting things. Maybe grief had damaged my brain in some fundamental way. I was 65, after all, and dementia could strike anyone. The thought terrified me, but Emily was so caring about it, so gentle when she reminded me to take my pills or helped me find my keys. I trusted her. I leaned on her. I believed she had my best interests at heart. Until today. Until I heard what she said on that phone call, the one she thought I was too out of it to comprehend. Until the slap that was meant to knock sense out of me instead knocked sense into me. Until I realized that every strange symptom, every moment of confusion, every embarrassing incident where I could not remember something important, had been carefully orchestrated by the woman I thought was my daughter. I stayed standing at that counter long after Emily walked away, humming to herself as she poured a cup of coffee like she had not just struck me. My cheek throbbed. My mind raced. I needed to think, to process what I had just learned, but I could not let her see that anything had changed. I touched my face gingerly and shuffled toward the hallway, moving with the slow, uncertain gait I had been using for the past month without even realizing it was an act I had been unconsciously performing to match her narrative of my decline. In my room, I locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, my whole body trembling. Not from fear, though there was plenty of that. Not from pain, though my face still stung. I was trembling with rage. With betrayal. With the dawning horror of understanding just how deeply I had been manipulated and deceived. Emily thought I was drugging myself into confusion. She thought I was taking the medications she handed me each morning and night, the little blue pills she said were for my heart, the white ones for my blood pressure, the yellow capsules for my anxiety. I had been taking them faithfully, trusting her to manage my healthcare the way she had insisted on doing after David died. But what if those were not the medications my doctor had prescribed? What if Emily had been giving me something else entirely, something to make me foggy and forgetful and confused? The thought made me want to vomit. I went to my purse with shaking hands and pulled out my phone, the one Emily did not know I had recently learned to use better than I let on. My grandchildren had taught me before David died, patient and laughing at my mistakes, showing me how to search the internet and send emails and even record videos. Emily thought I could barely turn it on. I had let her think that, mainly because I was embarrassed by how much I had to learn. Now I was grateful for that deception. I searched for the medications Emily had been giving me, using the imprints on the pills I had secretly saved last week when something felt off. My heart sank as the results loaded. The blue pills were not heart medication. They were a strong sedative, the kind used for severe anxiety disorders. The white ones were not for blood pressure. They were antipsychotics, medications given to people with schizophrenia or severe bipolar disorder. The yellow capsules were not anxiety medication. They were a powerful hypnotic, something that could cause memory loss and confusion with prolonged use. No wonder I had been feeling so strange. No wonder I could not think clearly, could not remember conversations, could not trust my own mind. Emily had been systematically drugging me, making me sick, making me seem incompetent and mentally unstable. But why? What did she gain from my deterioration? The answer hit me like another slap, harder than the physical one. If I was declared mentally incompetent, Emily would gain control of everything. The house, the savings accounts, the investment portfolio David and I had built over 40 years of marriage. My late husband had left everything to me when he passed 3 years ago, and I had intended to leave it all to David. When David died, the estate should have been divided between Emily and any future grandchildren, with provisions to ensure I was cared for during my lifetime. But if Emily could have me declared incompetent, if she could get legal guardianship over me, she would control all of it. She could put me in a nursing home, sell my house, drain my accounts, and I would be powerless to stop her. I would be locked away, drugged into compliance, while she lived the life of luxury my family had worked generations to build. The cruelty of it took my breath away. This was not just theft. This was murder of a different kind, the murder of my autonomy, my dignity, my very self. She was trying to erase me while I was still alive. And David. Oh God, David. What had she said on that phone call? That she was counting down the days until I was gone, just like she had planned for David? Just like my son? I had to sit down. The room spun around me. My son did not die of natural causes. My beautiful boy, my only child, the man who had been healthy and strong and full of life, had been murdered by his own wife. The woman he loved. The woman he trusted. The woman I had welcomed into our family with open arms. Emily killed him. She killed David for his money, for his life insurance, for his half of the estate he had inherited from his father. And now she was trying to kill me too, or at least make me wish I was dead. But I was not dead. I was not incompetent. I was not the confused old woman she wanted me to be. I was Margaret Elizabeth Hartford, daughter of a prosecutor, wife of a defense attorney, mother of a civil rights lawyer. I came from a family that believed in justice, that fought for truth, that never backed down from a fight when the cause was right. I had been sleepwalking through grief, letting Emily guide me because I was too lost in sorrow to see what was happening. But I was awake now. I was clear-headed for the first time in months, the fog lifting as adrenaline burned through the remaining drugs in my system, and I was going to make her pay. Not with violence. Not with screaming or confrontation or anything she could use against me to prove I was unstable. I would be smarter than that. I would be patient. I would play the role she had written for me, the declining old woman who needed care and supervision. I would take the pills she gave me and pretend to swallow them, hiding them away instead as evidence. I would shuffle and forget and seem confused while I gathered proof of what she had done. I would let her think she was winning while I built the case that would destroy her. Because that is what my family did. We built cases. We collected evidence. We fought battles in courtrooms and in the court of public opinion, and we won. Emily had made a critical mistake. She had underestimated me. She saw a grieving widow, a lonely old woman, an easy mark. She did not see the strength underneath, the intelligence, the resources. She did not know that I was not just David's mother. I was also the woman who had put 3 men through law school by running my own accounting firm. I was the woman who had managed a multi-million-dollar portfolio for 40 years. I was the woman who had negotiated business deals with some of the sharpest minds on Wall Street and come out ahead every single time. I was not helpless. I was not weak. I was just wounded and grieving and trusting when I should have been suspicious. But I was suspicious now. I was awake now. And I was going to take back everything she had tried to steal, starting with my own mind. I stood up from the bed, my legs steady beneath me. I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My cheek was red and swollen where she had hit me, a mark that would bruise by tomorrow. Good. I would photograph it. I would document everything from this moment forward. Every pill, every conversation, every action Emily took that revealed her true intentions. I heard her moving around downstairs, the familiar sounds of her morning routine. She would be getting ready to go out soon, to meet Veronica for their weekly brunch at the country club. She would leave me here alone, probably after giving me an extra dose of medication to ensure I slept through her absence. She always did that on brunch days, wanting me unconscious so I would not wander around or get into trouble while she was gone. Today, I would let her think it worked. I would take the pills and hide them, then pretend to sleep. And while she was gone, I would start my investigation. I had 4 hours until she returned. 4 hours to search her room, her computer, her files. 4 hours to find the evidence that would prove what she had done to me and to David. 4 hours to begin building the case that would either send her to prison or expose her so thoroughly that she would wish she was there. The fear was still present, coiling in my stomach like a living thing. Emily was dangerous. She had killed once and was trying to do it again. If she realized I knew the truth, if she suspected I was onto her schemes, she might accelerate her timeline. She might do something desperate. I had to be careful. I had to be smart. I had to be better at this game than she was. But I had advantages she did not know about. I had money in accounts she did not know existed, money I had set aside years ago in my own name from my business ventures. I had friends in high places, lawyers and judges and police officers who had known my husband, who had respected my son. I had a mind that was sharp and clear once the drugs wore off, a mind that could plan and strategize and outthink a woman who was motivated purely by greed. Most importantly, I had something Emily would never understand. I had nothing left to lose. David was gone. My husband was gone. The family I had built and loved and sacrificed everything for had been destroyed by this woman's ambition and cruelty. She thought that made me weak, that grief had broken me beyond repair. She was wrong. Loss had not weakened me. It had freed me. I had no more fear of consequences, no more worry about rocking the boat or causing family drama. There was no family left to protect except myself. I could be ruthless now in a way I never could have been when I had people to consider, relationships to preserve. Emily wanted to play games with an old woman? Fine, but she was playing with someone who had nothing to lose and everything to avenge. I splashed cold water on my face, careful of the bruised cheek. I straightened my cardigan and smoothed my gray hair. I practiced my confused expression in the mirror, the one I had been wearing unconsciously for weeks, until I could put it on and take it off like a mask. Then I unlocked my door and shuffled back downstairs, ready to play my part. Emily was in the kitchen, dressed in designer clothes and expensive jewelry, her blonde hair perfectly styled. She barely glanced at me as I entered. "Margaret, there you are," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "I was worried you had wandered off again. Did you forget where you were?" I blinked at her slowly, my expression vacant. "I was in my room," I said, my words slightly slurred as if I was still foggy from sleep. "Did you need something?" She smiled, satisfied. "I just wanted to check on you before I head out. Are you feeling all right? You seem a bit out of it this morning." I touched my cheek lightly, the bruise already forming. "I fell," I said softly. "In the bathroom. Hit my face on the sink." Her eyes sharpened with interest, calculating. "Oh no," she said, coming closer to examine the bruise. "That looks painful. You really need to be more careful, Margaret. These falls are getting worse. Maybe we should talk to your doctor about getting you some more help around the house." I nodded slowly, playing along. "Maybe," I agreed. I do not seem to remember things as well as I used to. She practically preened at my admission. "Well, do not worry," she said, pulling a pill bottle from her purse. "I will take care of you. Here, take your morning medications. They will help you feel better." She handed me 3 pills and a glass of water, watching carefully as I lifted them to my mouth. I had practiced this earlier, the sleight of hand that would let me pretend to swallow while tucking the pills into my cheek. I took a drink of water, made a show of swallowing, and opened my mouth slightly as if to breathe, giving her a glimpse of what looked like an empty mouth. "Good girl," she said, patting my shoulder in a way that made my skin crawl. "Now why do not you go lie down for a while? I am going to meet Veronica for brunch, and I will be back this afternoon. Do you think you can manage on your own for a few hours?" "I will be fine," I said meekly. "I will just rest." "Perfect," Emily said, already turning away to grab her purse. "There is soup in the fridge if you get hungry. Just heat it up in the microwave. You remember how to use the microwave, right?" The condescension in her voice was thick enough to choke on. "Yes," I said quietly. "I remember." "Good," she said, and I heard the relief in her voice that she would not have to deal with me for a few hours. "I will see you later, Margaret. Do not forget to stay inside. We would not want you wandering off and getting lost." She left in a cloud of expensive perfume, the front door clicking shut behind her. I heard her car start and pull out of the driveway. I counted to 100, making sure she was really gone, then I spit the pills into my hand and flushed them down the toilet. The fog in my head was already clearing. I could think more sharply, see more clearly. How long had it been since I had felt this way? Weeks? Months? The realization of how much of my life Emily had stolen made me want to scream, but I channeled that rage into focus. I had work to do. I started in Emily's bedroom, moving quickly but carefully, making sure to put everything back exactly as I found it. I searched her dresser drawers, her closet, her bedside table. I found nothing immediately damning, just expensive clothes and jewelry that seemed excessive for someone who was supposedly living on a widow's pension and my charity. Then I found her laptop. It was in her closet, hidden under a stack of sweaters. She must have thought I was too incompetent to know how to use a computer, too drugged to think of looking for one. I carried it to the kitchen table and opened it, my heart pounding. It was not password protected, another sign of her arrogance. I opened her email first. What I found there made me physically ill. Messages to Veronica, going back months, detailing the plan. Emily had been slipping David something in his morning coffee for weeks before he died, something she called the cocktail. She described his symptoms with cold clinical detachment, noting how the medication was weakening his heart, making him tired and irritable. She talked about adjusting dosages, about being careful not to leave evidence, about making sure it looked natural when he finally collapsed. She had murdered my son slowly, poisoning him day by day, and she had documented the whole thing like it was a science experiment. I had to put my head between my knees to keep from passing out. My baby. My boy. He had died in agony, confused and scared, his body betraying him, and all the while his wife had been the one killing him. She had held his hand in the hospital. She had cried at his funeral. She had looked me in the eye and accepted my comfort while knowing she was the reason he was dead. The emails went on. After David died, Emily wrote to Veronica about phase 2, about getting control of my assets. She detailed her plan to make me seem incompetent, to drug me into confusion, to have me declared mentally unfit so she could become my guardian. She talked about nursing homes, about how much money she would save by putting me in a state facility instead of a nice private one. She joked about how I deserved it for being so trusting, so naive, so easy to manipulate. There were emails to other people too. A lawyer she had consulted about guardianship proceedings. A psychiatrist she had paid to write a preliminary evaluation of my mental state based on her descriptions of my behavior. A real estate agent she had contacted about selling the house once she had full legal control. She had been planning this for over a year, since before David even died. She had married him for money, killed him for his inheritance, and now she was systematically destroying me to get the rest. I took screenshots of everything. I forwarded emails to an account Emily did not know about, one I had set up years ago for business purposes. I documented dates and times and details, building a timeline of her crimes. My hands shook as I worked, but I forced them steady. I could not afford to make mistakes now. Then I found the security camera footage. Emily had installed cameras around the house, supposedly for security, but I realized now they were to monitor me, to catch me in moments of confusion she could use as evidence of my incompetence. But she had not thought about what else they might record. I scrolled through weeks of footage, fast-forwarding through the boring parts. I found myself wandering the house at night, clearly drugged and disoriented. I found Emily leading me back to bed, her face full of false concern for the cameras. I found moments where I looked confused and lost, perfect ammunition for her case. But I also found other things. I found footage of Emily going through my papers when she thought I was asleep, photographing documents and bank statements. I found her on the phone in the kitchen late at night, laughing about how easy I was to manipulate, how stupid I was to trust her. I found her slipping pills into my food, crushing them up and stirring them into my oatmeal, my soup, my tea. And then I found the smoking gun. It was from 3 months ago, late at night in the kitchen. Emily was on a video call with Veronica, and they were both drinking wine, celebrating something. The camera had a microphone, and the audio was crystal clear. I turned up the volume and listened, my blood running cold. Emily was bragging about how perfectly David's death had gone, how the doctors had not suspected a thing. She laughed about how she had cried at the funeral while calculating her net worth in her head. She talked about me like I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. And then she said something that made my stomach drop. She said she had learned from the best. She said her father had done something similar to her stepmother years ago, and that is where she got the idea. She said it was actually easy once you knew how, as long as you were patient and careful and willing to commit to the long game. This was not her first time. She had done this before, or at least she had helped someone else do it. She was a serial killer, a black widow, and I had welcomed her into my family with open arms. I downloaded all the footage. I backed it up to my cloud storage, to an external hard drive I found in my own belongings, to 3 different email accounts. I made sure there was no way Emily could delete the evidence, no way she could make it disappear. Then I kept digging. I found her bank statements on the laptop, records of purchases and transfers that told a different story than the Grieving Widow Act. She had been spending lavishly since David died, designer clothes and jewelry and spa days and trips. She had opened credit cards in my name, running up debt while she waited to gain control of my assets to pay it off. She had taken out a loan against the house, forging my signature on the documents. She had been stealing from me for months, and I had been too drugged and confused to notice. I documented it all. Every purchase, every transfer, every fraudulent document. I built a case that would be impossible to refute, evidence so overwhelming that no lawyer could defend against it, no jury could doubt it. By the time Emily came home that afternoon, I was back in my room, pretending to sleep. I had replaced her laptop exactly where I found it. I had cleared my search history, deleted my tracks, left no sign that I had been digging through her secrets. As far as she knew, I had spent the afternoon in a drugged stupor, exactly as she had planned. But everything had changed. I had the evidence. I had the proof. Now I just needed the perfect opportunity to use it. That opportunity would come in 3 weeks, at the annual Memorial Day barbecue we had hosted every year for the past 20 years. Emily had insisted we continue the tradition, inviting her friends and social circle, the people she wanted to impress with her Grieving Widow Act. She had no idea she was planning her own execution. I would let her have her party. I would play the doddering old woman for her guests. And then, when everyone was gathered and comfortable and least expecting it, I would show them exactly who Emily really was. I would let her own words condemn her. I would let her own actions destroy her. I would take back everything she had stolen, and I would make sure she paid for every single crime she had committed against my family. She thought I was weak. She thought I was broken. She thought grief had made me vulnerable and easy to control. She had no idea what was coming. And I had 3 weeks to make sure my revenge was perfect. The first thing I did was stop taking the medications entirely. I continued to palm the pills Emily gave me each morning and night, flushing them down the toilet or hiding them in a small container I kept locked in my bedside drawer. Within 3 days, the fog in my head cleared completely. My memory sharpened. My energy returned. I felt like myself again for the first time in months, and the clarity was both wonderful and enraging. I could see now how much she had stolen from me. Not just money or property, but time. Months of my life lost to drugged confusion, months I could have spent healing from David's death instead of being systematically destroyed by his murderer. I grieved for those lost months almost as much as I grieved for my son. But I channeled that grief into action. Every morning, I played the confused old woman for Emily, shuffling around the house, forgetting conversations we never had, seeming disoriented and lost. She ate it up, her confidence growing with each day, her belief in her own cleverness making her sloppy. She started leaving her laptop out more often. She took phone calls in my presence, not bothering to hide her discussions about guardianship proceedings and nursing home facilities. She had me evaluated by the psychiatrist she had paid off, a man who asked leading questions and ignored my coherent answers in favor of Emily's narrative of my decline. I played along. I gave vague responses. I seemed confused about dates and times. I let him write his report recommending I be placed under guardianship, knowing that document would be Exhibit A in the criminal case I was building. While Emily thought I was deteriorating, I was actually getting stronger. I started exercising in my room when she was out, rebuilding muscle tone that had atrophied from the medications. I researched legal procedures for elder abuse, guardianship fraud, and homicide. I reached out carefully to some of my late husband's lawyer friends, asking hypothetical questions about evidence collection and criminal prosecution. I also started planning the barbecue. Emily wanted it to be a big event, a showcase of her position as the bereaved but resilient widow carrying on David's legacy. She invited 50 people, including her entire social circle, her parents, her siblings, and several of the neighbors who had expressed concern about my mental state. She saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate what a burden I had become, to gather witnesses to my incompetence who could testify in guardianship proceedings. I saw it as the perfect stage for her public destruction. The guest list Emily created was a gift. Everyone who mattered would be there. Her friends who she had bragged to about her schemes. Her family who had benefited from David's death without asking questions. The neighbors who had been so quick to believe I was losing my mind. And most importantly, Veronica, her closest confidant and co-conspirator in planning my downfall. I told Emily I wanted to help with the party planning. She was surprised but pleased, seeing it as another sign of my decline that I wanted to participate in something I would inevitably mess up. She let me handle some of the decorations, the food ordering, the setup. She did not notice when I quietly installed a small device near the television that would let me cast from my phone. She did not think twice about me fiddling with the outdoor speaker system, testing it to make sure the music would play properly. She had no idea I was rigging the entire backyard for the reveal of her lifetime. I also made some calls. I contacted David's life insurance company, asking innocent questions about the payout Emily had received. I reached out to the hospital where he died, requesting copies of his medical records. I filed requests with the police department for incident reports related to my supposed falls and confusion. Every official document I collected added weight to the case I was building. I even hired a private investigator, using money from my secret accounts. I had him look into Emily's background, her past relationships, her financial history. What he found confirmed my worst suspicions. Emily had been married once before, to a man named Robert Chin who died of a sudden heart attack at age 40. She had collected his life insurance and inheritance, then moved across the country and changed her name slightly, going from Emily Larson to Emily Larson. The investigator found online posts from Robert's family questioning his death, expressing suspicion about Emily, but nothing had ever been proven. She had done this before. David was not her first victim. I would make sure he was her last. As the party date approached, Emily became increasingly confident and careless. She talked openly on the phone about her plans to have me declared incompetent the week after the barbecue. She discussed nursing homes with the social worker she had hired, comparing prices and amenities like she was shopping for a vacation resort. She even showed me brochures, pretending to be considerate of my input while making it clear the decision was already made. I nodded and smiled and played confused, all while recording every conversation on the phone I kept hidden in my cardigan pocket. The night before the barbecue, Emily went through my medications with me one final time. She had increased the dosages, wanting me especially docile and confused for the party. She gave me twice the usual amount of pills, watching carefully as I pretended to take them. I tucked them into my cheek as always, but this time I pretended to stumble a bit as I walked away, letting her think the drugs were hitting me harder than usual. "Perfect," she said, and I heard the satisfaction in her voice. "Tomorrow is going to be a very important day, Margaret. I need you on your best behavior." "I will try," I mumbled, shuffling toward my room. In private, I spit out the pills and allowed myself a smile. Tomorrow would indeed be a very important day. Just not in the way Emily expected. I spent that night preparing. I organized all my evidence on my phone, creating a playlist of video and audio files in the exact order I wanted them revealed. I wrote out a script of what I would say, rehearsing it until the words flowed naturally. I chose my outfit carefully, a steel blue dress that made me look strong and capable, not the frumpy cardigans Emily had been dressing me in. I barely slept, adrenaline and anticipation keeping me wired. This was it. Tomorrow, Emily would face justice. Tomorrow, I would take back my life. Tomorrow, everyone would know the truth about the woman who had murdered my son and tried to destroy me. I was ready. The morning of the barbecue, Emily was frantic with last-minute preparations. She barely noticed when I came downstairs already dressed, my hair done, my makeup applied. When she did look at me, confusion crossed her face. "Margaret, you look very put together today," she said slowly. "I wanted to look nice for the party," I said mildly. "Is that all right?" She recovered quickly, her fake smile sliding back into place. "Of course," she said. "I am just surprised you managed it on your own. Are you feeling better today?" "I feel wonderful," I said honestly. "Like I am finally waking up from a long sleep." She frowned at that but did not have time to analyze it. Guests would start arriving in 2 hours, and there was still food to prepare and tables to set up. She shooed me outside to help arrange chairs, probably hoping the task would tire me out and make me more manageable. I worked with surprising energy, setting up the backyard exactly as I wanted it. The television I had insisted on bringing outside was positioned perfectly, visible from every angle. The speakers were arranged to carry sound to every corner of the yard. Everything was ready. Guests started arriving around noon. Emily greeted them at the door, playing the gracious hostess, accepting sympathy and compliments with practiced humility. I stood in the background, playing the quiet old woman, observing as her friends and family filled the backyard. Veronica arrived in a cloud of expensive perfume and air kisses, immediately seeking out Emily for whispered conversations I pretended not to notice. Emily's parents came, her father a pompous retired banker, her mother dripping in jewelry that probably came from Robert Chen's life insurance payout. Her brother brought his family, their kids running wild through the yard while the adults drank wine and congratulated Emily on how well she was handling everything. The neighbors came too, the ones who had looked at me with pity and concern when Emily told them about my declining mental state. They patted my hand and spoke to me slowly, like I was a child. I smiled vaguely and let them believe I barely recognized them. By 2 o'clock, the party was in full swing. People were eating and drinking and laughing, enjoying the beautiful late May weather. Emily was at the center of it all, the brave widow carrying on her late husband's traditions, caring for his poor declining mother out of the goodness of her heart. Everyone admired her so much. Everyone thought she was so selfless. I waited until Emily called everyone to gather for a toast. She had planned this, wanting to make a speech about David and family and moving forward. She stood at the head of the main table with a glass of champagne, waiting for everyone to settle and give her their attention. It was perfect. I walked calmly to where I had hidden my phone, connected to the outdoor television system. I pressed play on the first video file. The television screen flickered to life, and suddenly Emily's voice was booming through the backyard speakers. It was the security camera footage from 3 months ago, the late-night video call with Veronica where Emily bragged about killing David. The backyard went silent. Everyone turned to look at the screen, confusion on their faces. Emily's face went white. "Oh my God, this is so easy," Emily's voice said from the speakers, laughing and drunk. The doctors did not suspect a thing. I cried so hard at the funeral, and the whole time I was calculating how much money I was going to get. On screen, Veronica laughed. "You are terrible," she said. "I learned from the best," Emily replied. "Remember how my dad handled Sharon? Same principle. Just be patient, be careful, and make it look natural." I watched Emily's father's face drain of color. So there had been another victim. Sharon must have been a stepmother who had died under mysterious circumstances. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. The video continued playing, Emily and Veronica discussing phase 2 of the plan, the systematic drugging and manipulation of the old woman who trusted them. I stood still, watching as Emily frantically tried to get to the television, to turn it off, but the guests had formed a barrier without realizing it, all of them frozen in shock at what they were witnessing. When that clip ended, another began. This one was Emily on the phone with the psychiatrist, discussing how much she would pay him to write a report declaring me incompetent. He named a price. She agreed. They laughed about how easy it was to manipulate the system when you knew the right people to bribe. Then came the emails, displayed on the screen one by one, Emily's cold clinical descriptions of poisoning David, her calculations of how long it would take for the drugs to stop his heart, her excitement when he finally collapsed. I killed a slideshow presentation with all the financial fraud, the credit cards opened in my name, the forged signatures, the stolen money. I showed the timeline of David's symptoms matched against Emily's emails describing adjusting his dosage. I showed the truth behind every lie she had told, every manipulation she had orchestrated. Emily was screaming now, trying to push through the crowd, her face red with rage and panic. Several men grabbed her, holding her back, their expressions no longer sympathetic but horrified and disgusted. When the last piece of evidence finished playing, I finally spoke. "My name is Margaret Elizabeth Hartford," I said, my voice clear and strong, nothing like the confused mumbling I had been using for months. "I am 65 years old. I am not demented. I am not confused. I am not mentally incompetent. For the past 4 months, I have been systematically drugged by my daughter-in-law Emily Larson in an attempt to make me appear mentally unfit so she could gain guardianship over me and steal my assets." I walked toward the center of the gathering, everyone parting to let me through. "I am the widow of James Hartford and the mother of David Hartford. I am the founder of Hartford Financial Services, which I ran successfully for 30 years before retirement. I hold a master's degree in accounting and a law degree I earned later in life. I am not, and have never been, the helpless old woman Emily wanted you all to believe I was." I stopped in front of Emily, looking her directly in the eyes. "The woman you just heard on those recordings murdered my son. She poisoned him slowly over the course of weeks, stopping his heart and making it look like a natural death. She documented the entire process in emails to her friend Veronica Walsh, who is also here today and who was complicit in planning my destruction." Veronica tried to bolt. 2 of the neighbors, both retired police officers, grabbed her. "After killing David, Emily set out to steal everything my family built over generations. She drugged me with sedatives and antipsychotics, causing confusion and memory loss. She manipulated my medications, my food, my environment to make me appear incompetent. She installed security cameras to document my drugged behavior while not realizing those same cameras caught her poisoning my food and bragging about her crimes." I held up a thick folder I had prepared. "I have here copies of all the evidence you just saw, along with additional documentation of financial fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse. I have statements from a private investigator detailing Emily's previous marriage to Robert Chen, who also died of a mysterious heart attack at age 40, after which Emily collected his life insurance and disappeared. I have medical records, toxicology reports, expert analyses, and witness statements." I looked around at the assembled guests, at their shocked faces and horrified expressions. "I have already provided all of this to the Connecticut State Police, the FBI, and the District Attorney's Office. There are detectives on their way here right now to arrest Emily Larson for the murder of David Hartford, the attempted murder of Margaret Hartford, multiple counts of fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder abuse." As if on cue, I heard sirens in the distance. I had timed this perfectly, coordinating with the detective I had been working with to make sure they arrived right after the reveal. Emily lunged at me, her face twisted with rage. "You crazy old bitch," she screamed. "You were supposed to be in a nursing home by now. You were supposed to be drooling and helpless. I stepped back calmly as several men restrained her. The cameras caught that too, I said, pointing to the security system she had installed. Every threat, every moment of violence, every pill you crushed into my food. It is all documented. You thought you were so clever, but you were really just arrogant and sloppy. The sirens grew louder. Police cars pulled into the driveway, officers emerging and walking into the backyard. Detective Sarah Martinez, the woman I had been working with for the past 2 weeks, came straight to me. "Mrs. Hartford," she said formally, for the benefit of the witnesses. "We received your complaint and reviewed the evidence you provided. We have a warrant for Emily Larson's arrest." She turned to Emily, who had stopped struggling and stood frozen, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. "Emily Larson, you are under arrest for the murder of David Hartford, the attempted murder of Margaret Hartford, and multiple counts of fraud and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent." I watched as they handcuffed her, as they read her rights, as they led her through the crowd of people who had come to celebrate her fake grief and ended up witnessing her destruction. Her eyes met mine one last time, and I saw the moment she understood that she had completely underestimated me. Veronica was arrested too, charged as an accessory after the fact. Emily's psychiatrist, who had accepted bribes to falsify evaluations, was also being investigated. The whole house of cards Emily had built came tumbling down in the span of 30 minutes. After they took her away, I stood in the backyard surrounded by stunned guests. My elderly neighbor Clara approached me cautiously. "Margaret, I am so sorry," she said, tears in her eyes. We believed her. "We thought you were really declining. If we had known." "It is not your fault," I told her gently. She was very convincing. She spent months building a narrative that seemed believable because why would anyone suspect their own daughter-in-law of something so evil? Others came forward with apologies, with shame at how easily they had been manipulated. Emily's family left quickly and quietly, her father's face haunted by the revelation about Sharon. I wondered how long before the police started investigating that death too. I ended up sitting at one of the tables with Detective Martinez, going over details of the case while crime scene investigators photographed evidence and collected the medication bottles Emily had been using to drug me. "This is one of the most thoroughly documented cases of elder abuse I have ever seen," Detective Martinez said. "The evidence you collected is extraordinary. She is going to prison for a very long time." "Good," I said simply. In the weeks that followed, Emily's trial became a media sensation. The footage I had captured went viral online, sparking national conversations about elder abuse, financial exploitation, and women who marry for money. Emily's face was plastered across every news outlet, her crimes dissected and analyzed by experts and armchair detectives alike. Her defense tried to claim I had manipulated the evidence, that I was mentally unfit and this was all an elaborate delusion. That fell apart when my doctors testified about the drugs found in my system, when computer forensics confirmed the emails and videos were authentic, when Robert Chen's family came forward with their own suspicions about Emily's role in his death. The trial lasted 3 months. I testified, calm and clear-headed, detailing everything Emily had done to me and to David. Her own words, captured on camera and in writing, condemned her more thoroughly than any witness testimony could. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found her guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without possibility of parole, calling her crimes some of the most calculating and cold-blooded he had seen in his career. Veronica got 15 years as an accessory. The psychiatrist lost his medical license and faced criminal charges for fraud. Emily's father was investigated for Sharon's death, and while they could not prove murder after so many years, the civil suits from Sharon's family bankrupted him. I got my life back. More than that, I got justice for my son. David's death was reclassified from natural causes to homicide. His name was cleared of any suggestion that he had been careless with his health. The truth was known and documented forever. I also discovered that David had suspected something near the end. He had written a letter to his lawyer, sealed and instructed to be opened only if he died under suspicious circumstances. The lawyer had not thought a heart attack was suspicious enough to open it, but after Emily's arrest, he came forward with the document. In the letter, David detailed his suspicions that Emily was poisoning him. He described his symptoms, his wife's strange behavior, his growing fear. He wrote that he hoped he was wrong, that he loved Emily and wanted to believe in her, but if something happened to him, he wanted someone to investigate. He ended the letter with instructions for his estate, ensuring I would be protected and provided for no matter what happened. My brilliant, careful son. Even dying, he was trying to protect me. I had the letter framed and hung it in my study, next to a photo of David as a child, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. I looked at it every day and promised him that his death had not been in vain. Justice had been served. Truth had won. The house was truly mine now, along with all the assets Emily had tried to steal. I sold it, unable to live in a place with so many painful memories, and bought a smaller home near my grandchildren. David had 2 kids from a previous relationship, teenagers now, who I reconnected with after the trial. Emily had tried to keep me away from them during her scheme, not wanting anyone close to me who might notice the changes. We grieved together, properly this time, for the father and son we had lost. We talked about David's kindness, his intelligence, his dedication to justice. We made sure his memory was not defined by how he died but by how he lived. I also started a foundation in David's name, focused on elder abuse prevention and education. I used the money Emily had tried to steal to create programs that helped other families recognize and report financial exploitation, domestic violence, and caretaker abuse. I spoke at conferences, sharing my story, warning others about the signs I had missed until it was almost too late. Some people asked why I did not just report Emily as soon as I discovered her crimes. Why did I wait? Why did I plan such an elaborate public reveal? The answer was simple. If I had gone to the police immediately, Emily would have claimed I was having a mental health crisis. The psychiatrist she had paid off would have supported her story. Her lawyer would have argued I was incompetent and fabricating accusations. It would have been her word against mine, and I was the old woman who had been exhibiting signs of dementia for months. I needed undeniable proof. I needed witnesses who could not be dismissed or bribed. I needed to show everyone, simultaneously and publicly, exactly who Emily was when she thought no one was watching. The Memorial Day barbecue gave me the perfect audience and the perfect stage. By revealing her crimes in front of 50 witnesses, by showing the video evidence publicly before she had any chance to spin a narrative or hide behind lawyers, I made it impossible for her to escape justice. Everyone saw the truth at once. There was no he said she said, no room for doubt, no opportunity for her to manipulate the situation. It was calculated. It was strategic. It was exactly what my family had always done, fighting battles with evidence and truth and the power of public opinion. And it worked perfectly. 3 years have passed since that Memorial Day barbecue. Emily is serving her sentence in a maximum security women's prison. She has tried several appeals, all denied. Veronica was released after serving 8 years of her sentence, quietly living in another state under a different name. The media eventually moved on to other stories, other scandals. But I have not moved on. I think about David every day. I think about the future he should have had, the grandchildren he should have raised, the life Emily stole from him. I think about the months she stole from me, the trust she betrayed, the pain she deliberately inflicted. But I also think about justice. About the fact that her crimes did not go unpunished. About the fact that she is spending the rest of her life in a cage while I am free to enjoy my remaining years with my family. About the fact that David's name has been cleared and his memory honored. I think about the other victims I may have saved. After Emily's case made headlines, 3 other women came forward with similar stories about her family. Emily's father, it turns out, had helped several relatives commit insurance fraud through staged deaths. The investigation uncovered an entire network of conspiracy and murder for profit. Families got closure. Cases were reopened. Justice, though delayed, was served. None of that would have happened if I had stayed silent. If I had accepted Emily's narrative of my own incompetence. If I had let grief and confusion and medication keep me passive and helpless. Instead, I fought back. I used every skill and resource I possessed. I played the role Emily wanted me to play while secretly gathering the evidence that would destroy her. I was patient when I wanted to be rash, strategic when I wanted to be emotional, calculating when every instinct screamed for immediate revenge. And I won. I sit now on my back porch, watching the sun set over the garden I have been cultivating in my new home. My grandchildren are inside, laughing and arguing over a board game. A framed photo of David sits on the table beside me, him at 30, healthy and happy and alive. I think about what I would tell other people in similar situations, other elders being exploited by those they trust. I would tell them to trust their instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I would tell them to document everything, to keep evidence, to build cases before making accusations. I would tell them that being old does not mean being helpless, that wisdom and experience are weapons more powerful than youth and strength. Most importantly, I would tell them that it is never too late to fight back. That justice delayed is not justice denied. That the truth, properly revealed, is an unstoppable force. Emily tried to write me out of my own story. She tried to make me the tragic ending to her tale of greed and manipulation. She thought my age made me vulnerable, that grief made me weak, that confusion made me helpless. She was wrong about all of it. I wrote my own ending. I claimed my own justice. I told my own truth. And in doing so, I honored my son, protected my family, and proved that underestimating an old woman is always a fatal mistake. The scars remain. I still have nightmares sometimes about the months I lost to drugged confusion. I still feel a flash of rage when I think about Emily sitting in the hospital, holding David's hand while knowing she had killed him. I still grieve for the life we should have had, the decades stolen by one woman's bottomless greed. But I also have peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you did everything in your power to seek justice. The kind of peace that comes from turning your pain into protection for others. The kind of peace that comes from surviving something designed to destroy you and coming out stronger on the other side. Emily is in prison. David is at peace. I am free. That is my ending. That is my story. And it is an ending I chose, on my own terms, in my own time, through my own strength. No one will ever take that from me again.